Hello, and welcome to Back Through the Lens, where two film school friends talk about movies through the haze of nostalgia. The good, the bad, and the ones that aren't quite how we remember them. I'm your host, Rachel, and with me is my co host, Joe. Today's movie is Porky's.
Why are you laughing? Okay.
It's just so stupid.
You're right. It's 1981, and a film will be released that will apparently be the bar for at least half a decade by which comedies will be measured. The candle flame the studios will be held to. The beacon of comedy light producers will be drawn to when they are lost in the sea of mediocre scripts. That film, for some reason, was Porky's. In our last season, we discussed 10 films that were released in 1985, and during our research, one film kept coming up as an example of what those films should have looked to for success. Porky's. In this episode, we decided to visit the swamp and see what everyone was talking about and why the studios all wanted another Porky's.
I love that intro.
Thanks.
For some reason, it was Porky's. Yeah, so if you have listened to Season 4, all movies from 1985 that turned 40 when we turned 40, you will know that every teen movie that got pitched kept getting rejected because it wasn't raunchy enough. It had to be more like Porky's. And eventually, I think both of us, as we closed out the season, were like, what is it about Porky's?
I still don't know.
And yes, having watched the entire thing now, I still don't know. Pretty sure the answer is that it made $130 million. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. That'll do it, really. The studios, do they want to be like Porky's or they want to make money like Porky's? I think that's the real question.
I think, especially from some of the quotes we had from John Hughes, they thought that they needed raunchier comedies in order to make that much money.
Fair enough.
And I did go and look back to compare some of the grosses for some of the movies that were considered hits in that season. Mm-hmm. So like I said, Porky's, depending on what source you're using, the budget was anywhere from $2 million to $5 million, but still it's what we could consider a fairly low budget. And as I said, it grossed $130 million worldwide. So huge return there. Breakfast Club, I believe it made $51 million. Still considered a hit, but not as much money as Porky's. St. Elmo's Fire was also considered a hit with $37 million. So you can make enough to be considered a hit movie, but then there's Porky's. Mm-hmm. In comparison, I believe Back to the Future, which was our top movie of 1985, made like $300 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, so something was able to do better than Porky's.
And there was no raunchiness.
No raunchiness. Yep. So yeah, pretty much answers our question, why did everything have to be Porky's? This was why. So like I said, $130 million. It was the 6th highest grossing film of 1982. It can be considered the highest grossing Canadian film of all time because technically your face.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of impressive.
I know. Technically, the production company Astral Media is Canadian, or was Canadian. It was also re-released in 1983 ahead of the sequel, and it made another $6 million. So even then, like, it's not bad for something that had already had a theatrical run.
On their second release in theaters, they recoup money from production alone. So if we not include the $100 bajillion they made in 1982, the re-release made enough to cover, well, depending on what site you look at.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, even the higher end of the budget estimate, yeah. Damn. Just some references from our most recent season and the undercurrent of Porky's that went through that entire season. The Breakfast Club was supposed to have a scene where the principal or vice principal, I can never remember what that man's role is supposed to be, but he was going to watch the female swim coach swim naked,
Hmm.
like through a peephole. Apparently, Molly Ringwald convinced John Hughes to cut that. John Hughes gave a quote where he said, "There were no bare breasts, no party scenes, no guys drinking beer, the things that the studio thought a teenage picture needed." So we know for sure, because this was a teen focused movie, he was being pressured to make it raunchier. St. Elmo's Fire, same thing. Teen Wolf, I'm pretty sure they mentioned that that's why they had that one topless scene in Teen Wolf.
Hmm.
Even though you do only see her back, it's different. But
But yeah, it's hinted at. There's
yes,
there's some skin shown, so
exactly. I personally remembered in our episode where we discussed Real Genius, Martha Coolidge, the director, said that leading up to Real Genius, she was getting all these scripts that were basically sex comedies, kind of rip-offs of Porky's. And she said she really could not believe what was being put into some of these scripts. She couldn't believe that they were considering, making these movies. They were so outrageous because these were scripts that were already greenlit to go into production. And it was basically like she had a hit movie, so she was allowed to pick which one she wanted to direct. So they really were running with this, obviously. But I specifically remember that quote from her saying she was just shocked at how explicit some of it was. And now that I have seen Porky's, I think I understand.
yeah, I would think that in our last season, Weird Science might be the most raunchy one off the top of my head.
Yeah, and I had thought of that too, because particularly they have that scene in the shower with Lisa. I
Hmm.
feel like if they were shooting for more of a Porky's knockoff, they would have shown more of her, I guess. But if I remember correctly, that was PG.
I mean, there's a lot of undertone of sex, especially with the
Hmm.
children and the model. And then, as you pointed out, like bare breast on the computers. It wasn't Lady Hawk.
So I'm sorry, when you say the children, do you mean the teenage boys?
Yes, but there's like a
Okay.
like a 6 year gap there, if not more. So
I know they are still underage. I get it. Yeah, I guess I was surprised we didn't hear more about the studio pushing Weird Science to be more explicit, but and maybe they did for all we know. The backstory with Weird Science was more so that John Hughes was stretching himself thin because he was still trying to finish The Breakfast Club. So,
it's tough for me to like consider St. Elmo's Fire a teen comedy, even though they're the same actors that we saw earlier in the year, but
hmm,
their characters are young adults.
that's true. I guess I lumped it with it being sort of a teen movie,
Right.
but it is different.
Yeah, the subject matter is not the same. Like you go from being in detention on Saturday school in one movie, and then in another, you're debating whether you're a Republican or a Democrat and who you should work for, and sleeping with your boss to cheat the system or whatever the case may be.
You know what I'm picturing? I'm picturing Billy on that damn bus waving from the front window as if he's like leaving on a voyage. And the bus driver's just like, yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
Just stand at the front for the whole drive. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, St. Elmo's Fire. Okay. This isn't what we're here to talk about. Okay. So feel like that's all the points we had to make. Basically, I really think the point is that everyone saw how much money Porky's made, and they were like, raunchy teen sex comedies are the only things that are going to sell here. And they were wrong, but also none of these movies made as much as Porky's did. So
Yeah. I'm thoroughly convinced there was no other movie that came out in 1982.
we'll talk about this more as we discuss Porky's itself, but I'm very curious if there was no other movies before this that had nudity or something. Like, I feel like that had to be the draw.
That can't be true, though. Let's introduce the movie. We'll move on here.
Okay. So today's movie is Porky's, directed by Bob Clark, who is also our screenwriter. Released November 13th, 1981, but only in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and Columbia, South Carolina. Wide release March 19th, 1982, rated R.
A group of high school boys are overly concerned with losing their virginity. Of course they are. After a prank results in most of them naked and running through the woods, they decide to head south to the Everglades to a bar called Porky's that is known for having a room, with a fee, to spend time with some ladies. Owner and operator Porky plays a trick on the underage group and they end up in the moat. Yes, in the moat. From here, the movie splits into several subplots, but the constant is that one of our gang keeps going back for revenge on Porky, but is constantly coming back, getting his ass kicked. So then it takes the whole group and a marching band to get back at Porky.
The whole time you were reading that, I was like, why is he saying it as Porky without the S? And I have to keep telling myself in the title it's apostrophe S because it's his establishment.
Right.
His name isn't Porky's.
He's a large man. He could be a Porky's.
I did want to point out Bob Clark, our director and screenwriter. He is also the director of A Christmas Story, which we discuss in episode 29.
It's a
So,
whole different ball game.
hold it. Yeah, I was going to say, like, we always joke about people containing multitudes. Oh boy. Wasn't this around the time, too, that he was driving around listening to that guy's short stories on the radio? And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, I can't wait to turn his short stories into a Christmas movie one day.
Right.
Oh gosh. Apparently, this Porky's, we're talking about Porky's now, not A Christmas Story, was
Right.
based on Bob Clark's actual time as a teenager in Florida, either stories he heard or actual situations he and his friends got into, which I feel like I'm a little concerned about what they were all exposed to growing up now.
Yeah, I feel like some of it has to be exaggerated for comedic purposes.
I'm sure. God, I
I
hope.
I hope.
And there was an actual bar or something named Porky's, but not sure if this was a place that his friends all tried to get into or if that's just what he took the name from. I did not do a deep dive into Porky's, so
Yeah, same. This was enough.
this was enough, yeah. So before we decided to do this, had you ever seen Porky's?
No, and I thought I might have caught some of it on TV, which would have been highly edited,
Yeah.
but nothing looked familiar or seemed familiar, minus like, I don't know, shots or scenes that you would already know about just by knowing that a movie existed, but nothing triggered any memory, whether it was on cable or otherwise for me.
Yeah, I thought I had seen it at least once, but immediately when the movie started and it's set in the 50s, I was surprised because I just assumed it was set in the 80s or, whenever it was made. So then I was second guessing myself. But I think, like you, certain scenes were familiar. Maybe I saw it on TV. I would be a little surprised just because, like you said, it would have had to have been so heavily edited that you'd be cutting huge chunks out of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it being on TV. You would just censor the language and then not show, the shower scene
Hmm.
fully. You'd have to really do some creative editing there,
Yeah.
and none of like the naked dudes running around.
I'm also wondering if I just saw certain scenes on like those VH1 type of shows, like I Love the 80s or something. I also wonder if some of it had to do with Kim Cattrall suddenly being a really big star because of Sex and the City coming out. It is kind of funny that she's top billed and she has such a small role in this. I have to imagine that's why. because she's the one that really got famous after, much later.
Yeah, I wonder if this was one of those post top billing situations.
Hmm. I don't even remember the credits, to be honest with you, the opening credits. I think it was
Uh,
the neon pigs
yeah,
that
and
are on the Porky's establishment.
the whatever the production, the Canadian thing, that logo looked very, very old, and I did not know this was the 50s yet because I'm just putting it on, and like, wow, this looks really, really dated. They had some poor production in 1981. And then, yeah, it's just the title of the film, but it's a neon sign, and it kind of illuminates the rest of the setting. And then you realize it's a bigger sign, and we get the setting of the bar and the crowded parking lot. So I kind of thought that was cool, a little different, because I don't think I knew Porky's was a bar, a place to go to. I don't know what I thought Porky's was, because I guess I had never seen this before, even though I was unsure. But definitely with this opening scene, I was like, yeah, this is new for me.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up that dated looking logo for the production company because my initial thought when I realized that this took place in the 50s was that the logo from Astral Media could have been from the 50s for how dated it looked. And it was a real contrast between that and then the actual opening credits of Porky's. Yeah, I guess I didn't really know what Porky's was either. I don't know what I thought. Pigs make sense. I don't know. I really think I assumed this movie was literally about these teenage boys going to a strip club named Porky's, and that would make sense, and they sort of do, but we actually don't spend that much time at Porky's. We just like hear about Porky's. Shocker, Porky's is a strip club.
I was also surprised how little time we are actually at Porky's the establishment. It's just something that's constantly being talked about. One guy, Jarvis, or whatever his first name is, I kept getting confused with all these kids. He keeps going back and getting his ass kicked, but we'll get into that. Or, I mean, I guess that's really the end of that thought. That's just what happens a lot, apparently.
The end. No more, no need to talk about anything further.
Yeah,
That's Porky's. Bye,
that's
guys.
Porky's. Yeah. During the credits, knowing that we picked this because it kept coming up in season 4, seeing some of these names, like, and these are the actors' names in the credits, a Wyatt something, a something Christmas, because of previous episodes, because of Bob Clark, it was hard not to think of other things that led us to here for me.
Are you telling me that one of the actors' last names was Christmas?
Yes,
That's interesting. Okay. Definitely missed that.
it just stuck out because Bob Clark was on the brain and, previous episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think of A Christmas Story when I see Bob Clark's name. Unfortunately, now I've also seen Porky's. But didn't Bob Clark also do Black Christmas, the Christmas slasher movie?
I was going to bring that up. Yes,
Okay, yeah.
we
That
might
we
have to do
also
it.
have not seen, yeah.
Well, night is young.
Could you imagine? And apologies to Bob Clark, but like, could you imagine doing like a Bob Clark movie marathon and it's Porky's, Black Christmas, and a Christmas Story?
Oh yeah, I mean that's some range.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
It's one way to put it.
If you do it in the wrong order, it becomes like a through line. You start with Christmas Story, and then Porky's, and we just assume that one of these guys could be Ralphie, and then Black Christmas when things take a turn for the worst. He's the
Mm.
murderer. Ralphie is the murderer.
God.
We should talk about Porky's.
Yes. Yeah, so like we said, this takes place in the 50s, which I guess maybe makes sense since we learned it was based on Bob Clark's teenage years growing up in Florida. Again, I just was always under the impression that it took place in the 80s.
Yeah, same.
So that being said, we are introduced to some of our group. There's a main group of 5 or 6 guys. I was
Yeah.
having trouble keeping everyone apart except for Pee Wee, just because he's like the shortest and kind of a redhead and he
Yeah.
looks obviously different. But we get this opening scene where you don't fully understand what they're discussing until a bit later, but they're talking about including this black man in a prank that they're going to play on Pee Wee. However, they start by just discussing this man, and someone says, "Hey, did you get the colored man? He looks like an African Zulu man." And I wrote, "Well, I guess I should have been expecting this, but it could have been worse because at least we're not using any racial slurs." And then literally the next character to show up drops the N word.
Yeah, that escalated quickly. I didn't even know what the
Hmm.
hell they were talking about in this scene. They're like driving car by car and screaming over each other. What a weird conversation to be having while driving two separate cars.
Yeah.
I guess it's before cell phones, so you can really call each other and like, "Hey, you have that colored man I was looking for." Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was
Um,
just such a bizarre introduction because they're all arriving to school and this is your introduction to the friend group basically. The only
mhm.
thing we see before this is Pee-wee waking up in the morning and we find out he's been measuring his penis daily and it's apparently shrinking.
Was that Pee Wee? I thought that was Tommy. So here's the thing. They look similar besides his height. They all look very similar, very generic. I kept thinking I've seen these guys in other movies and I couldn't figure it out. I feel like I haven't seen them in other movies, at least not the ones I saw on their IMDb page. Some of them look like other actors to me. One of them, I can't remember who, looks like, oh God, name escapes me, but the actor that played Kyle Reese in Terminator, the first one.
For what it's worth, I looked it up. Pee-wee is the one in the beginning.
Okay,
So at least I got that one right. I know I
sure.
messed up a few times throughout the movie, but
Yeah.
really glad my Google searches are gonna have that on there.
Yeah.
But
Oh no.
but no, you're right that all of these boys looked like generic 80s teen movie actor. I meant to look into their later careers, but none of them were names I recognized.
The only two that kept standing out to me was Billy and Meat because he's like 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
Even Pee Wee, he's short and reddish hair, but he looks a little bit like Tommy, who has like light brown auburn hair, and the kind of racist guy. He has dark hair, but he has the same facial features. Like they
Yeah.
all have these like beady eyes, little nose.
They did all sort of have the same facial features. I was very much relying on hair color
Yeah.
because the blonde one is Mickey that keeps going back to Porky's and getting beat up.
Yes, and that
Yeah.
was the one that dropped the N word because he is a rebel, and I don't mean like without a cause. I mean from the South,
Yep.
and he points it out to the other two who like kind of put him in check, like, "Hey, you probably shouldn't be saying that word." And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm from the South. It's okay." Like, and
Yeah.
then they go to school.
Yeah, this movie is full of people telling their friends that maybe you shouldn't call other people racial slurs and then being like, okay.
Yeah.
And then just like very quickly letting it go. So, but yes, so already not loving this escalated quickly, like you said. And also, it was impossible not to think of Pee Wee Herman all the time. They're using the name Pee Wee. I think that Pee Wee Herman was not a thing quite yet, but close.
Close.
Close. So, yeah, that got confusing for me as well. um, I couldn't tell anyone apart. I was picturing Paul Rubens. Like, none of it was going well. At some point, it becomes very obvious the whole point of this movie is to get Pee Wee laid. Someone says that they were with some woman that moves like an eel, and I wrote that I haven't heard it put like that before.
Yeah, I'm not even 100% sure exactly what that means. I have some ideas, but yeah, I haven't heard that before. I'm assuming it's something from the 50s.
Well, the thing is, someone says it later too, that someone like in bed moved like an eel, and I'm like, was this a common phrase?
Right. I think that's like way at the end too. The second time we hear this.
I think I
I don't
might
even
have
think I
written it.
noticed the first time I saw your note, and then I heard it later in the film. Like, oh my god, that's at least twice.
Yeah, it is at least twice. We're sort of introduced to the only staff we meet really at the school are the gym teachers. There are two female gym teachers, Ballbricker,
Hmm.
who is, I guess, what you would imagine, a larger, more masculine gym teacher. And then there is, I want to say
Honey,
Honeydew, but that's not right. Honeypot?
honeycomb,
Hon-
honeycomb,
it's
honeycomb,
Kim
honeycomb.
Cattrall, okay, from Sex in the City, but
Hold on. Honeywell.
all of us were wrong. Okay.
All two of us. We had lots of wrong guesses though.
Right. Yes. So that is a much younger and brunette Kim Cattrall. I actually didn't recognize her for most of the movie, and I really think it was just because she wasn't blonde. Apparently, she'd said later that she only did this role for the money. Like, she really was not having a lot of success as an actress, and that everyone was convinced she had ruined her career. And I was like, well, but it did really well, so why would they say that? And then now having watched it, I kind of understand.
So I didn't even pick up that this was Kim Cattrall. A, she's much younger. B, she has brown hair, and I know her as having blonde hair. But also, admittedly, was not a huge Sex in the City watcher. As I mentioned recently, we had just watched Sopranos for the first time, so not having HBO growing up put us back a little bit. So that wasn't the first show on my radar. I also thought that she was a student in this film for like 3/4 of the film, which made a lot of awkward moments, and then a much more relief later, but then still another awkward moment. But yeah, she's definitely much younger than Ballbricker, and that made for some awkward conversations later in the movie.
Yeah, I also thought she was a student for a little while. I guess she's an assistant coach for the
Yeah, I
ladies.
think.
There's a definite separation between the boys and the girls in gym class, but I also thought she was a student, which is problematic because the two, I guess, basketball coaches, the two male basketball coaches, the older one has obviously been intimate with her before because he says something about bringing her up to the equipment room, and you'll find out why everyone calls her Lassie. I'm sorry, like this man howling all the time, he calls her Lassie. The younger coach not understanding still why she is called Lassie. Like, sir, I figured this out in the first scene. Are you that dense?
I feel like he wanted a play-by-play description of why she's called Lassie. I don't know why, but yeah, it's very
Mm,
obvious. Like you said, the older gentleman, that's a loose term. He wasn't really being gentlemanlike.
right?
He's literally howling. Like, okay, well, that says enough, like you said. But the scene we're talking about, she's like bent over stretching, wearing like little red shorts. And I thought she was a student at this point, although would context clues would make sense that she isn't because she's facing the other girls, like she's instructing them, but they look about the same age. And we find out later, much later, towards the end of the movie, that the younger coach is barely older than his basketball team. He's like 22, 23. So he's, I don't know, not far removed from college himself.
Right. But like you said, when the two male coaches first start talking about her, I definitely thought these were two like adult staff members wanting to sleep with a student, or at least
Uh
one
huh.
staff member who had already slept with this student. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
which at the same time, I would not have been surprised if that's the direction we were going, because that seems to be something that would have just been like fine for the 80s
Yeah.
to insinuate in an 80s movie.
I was hoping that when he was calling her Lassie, I was really hoping it wasn't from his experiences. Because again, I thought she was a student. Like maybe the boys had talked about it and he just overheard conversation. I was really hoping that was a situation going on here.
I get that. Yeah. Like, I'm trying to make this better, but it's leaning the way I don't want it to.
Right.
Yep. And speaking of this staff that we meet, Pee Wee asks Ballbricker, the larger female gym teacher if she had lost weight recently. And I wrote, could you imagine talking to any I couldn't imagine talking to like any of the teachers at my school this way.
This time I know it was Tommy
Okay, sorry.
because in the reverse shot they have Pee Wee leaning against a fence, like right next to the two teachers. Also, this establishes Ballbreaker and Tommy's like internal feud that they have.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. But they do look a lot alike. It's very
Gotcha.
annoying.
Either way, I also think I was struggling with this sense of it's the 50s. So I'm imagining like beach blanket bingo kind of teens. Like I was just shocked at these like vulgar teens from the 1950s talking back to authority. I think I came into this with a preconceived notion of things and it was kind of altering my experience of this movie. The time difference messed with me because I definitely was expecting an 80s set 80s movie.
I feel like it's an 80s movie set in the 50s. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know how else to describe that.
They act like they're in the 80s. Is that
Like
what
it's an
you?
80s comedy, but
Mhm.
it's just we're gonna wear these shirts and drive these cars.
I see. Drop some racial slurs.
Well, they would have done that in the 80s anyways.
Possibly, yes. Speaking of that,
Oh no.
we get to a scene of them all playing basketball, and one of the guys in the group, I assume this is Tim,
Yes.
okay, calls one of the other basketball players on his team Jew boy. I
Mm-hmm.
assume because he is Jewish, and I'm struggling to keep all these people apart. I was like, is that important? Is this a side character? Like, I don't. It's important later, though, so that's
I was gonna
fine.
say the answer to both those questions is yes.
Yeah. hmm After this scene, they're in the locker room. The same guy in the group, Tim, is complaining about. I don't remember what they're doing, but they were talking about inviting this other student who's Jewish, and he's complaining about having to invite a Jew, and then he just drops a few more random racial slurs,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. It's just like, okay, I'm just like not having a good time so far.
Yeah, and he was dropping racial slurs that weren't even appropriately towards Jewish people, which was funny. And
That's
then
kind
he
of what
kept,
I thought too.
yeah, then he kept calling them kites, like the toy you play outside in the wind. And
Yeah,
then,
he wasn't really getting it right. Yeah.
yeah, and then our character, our Jewish friend here, Brian, he corrects him.
Yeah.
He's like, if you're gonna call me something, call it right.
Yeah. I did think that was kind of funny because I was like, I didn't pick up on it that he was saying kite at first, and then I was like, that's weird. It sounds like he's calling him a kite, like that you would fly. And then I was like, oh, he is. He's just stupid, I
Yeah, and
guess.
he even made that joke. He kept saying, "Anyone want to go outside and fly a kite? Anyone got some good kites out here?" And I was like, "Okay, you're not only being bigot, but you're being stupid about it." So,
Yeah, and even Brian, the Jewish student, makes that comment. You're like, you're too stupid to even be good at being a bigot.
yeah,
But yeah, I like Brian. I think maybe Brian was the only character I liked because he ends up being nice and helpful later.
the locker room scene between Brian and Tim, it ends up he get into a fist fight outside. Like, all right, let's square up, let's do it. And Brian works him over pretty well, and Tim ends up getting kicked off the basketball team for his prank he did earlier because he purposely like tripped Brian before he called him a Jew boy. And I do like the coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm not having any of that. And Tim's like, it was
Mm-hmm.
an accident. He goes, the hell it was. You're out of here. And he kicks him off the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so now Tim's upset, and we find out that Tim's dad is also a bigot. So obviously he's learned that from his father, and
Mm-hmm.
things get worse for Tim as the movie goes on.
I feel like things get worse for everyone, just in different ways. But Tim is, I feel like, the only one who has problems that aren't of his own creation.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the other kids' problems are just from being dumb.
Yes.
We'll get to all this. We have the first instance of at least Pee Wee and Tommy, I think, spying on the girls showering in their locker room. There's some crawl space they've figured out where they can look through a peephole at the girls while they shower. Literally, this is what they wanted to insert into the Breakfast Club, so that's cool. They don't get too far this time.
Yeah, they're late. Billy's with them, and he's like, "Hold on, I gotta grab my shoes or something like that." And Pee Wee's like, "Oh, we're gonna miss it," and he's all like amped up. Pee Wee like drank too many Red Bulls, I think, in this whole movie. He's always just so anxious and crazy.
Pee Wee is like really just so horny that he's so annoying, and I don't understand why he can't just like take care of this without everyone's help.
But yeah, to your point, Pee Wee is almost over the top horny that it's annoying to fact like I almost felt like he was just not the actor, but Pee Wee the character. I felt like he was overacting as a character.
I know what you mean about Pee Wee. I know it was supposed to be funny that he's just that all he thinks about is sex and he's so horny and he just always is commenting on girls or getting laid, but it was just so much and so over the top. Like a lot of his reactions were so over the top that I was just like, sometimes a line would be funny. But I also think this is my issue with these kinds of movies in general is like a dirty joke can be funny, a sex joke can be funny, but you're just hammering it all home. That's all this is. I think less is more in these situations, I guess.
Yeah, it stops being funny when it's the same joke 300 times.
Right, yes.
Like I already know the punchline, so you don't have to give me the setup anymore. We're good.
So this is where we get to this like shack in the swamp. I think they're in the Everglades, supposedly. The idea is that two of the guys have convinced everyone that they're basically all going to take turns sleeping with this prostitute, maybe, in this shack.
Yes, that
Okay.
is. Yeah, she's an exotic dancer, I believe.
Okay.
Is the term they give her, but in this scenario, I would call her something else, I suppose. But the idea is Billy and Tommy have gotten resources pulled together, and she said she will take care of everyone's needs. And so it's like the rest of the gang show up.
I was
And
actually confused at this because they're so focused on pulling one over on Pee Wee in particular
mhm.
that I didn't understand that none of the other guys knew it was a setup,
Yeah, I guess you want a good joke, you got to keep it close to the chest.
I guess. But basically, Pee Wee is so excited that he's finally going to get laid, and we hear about it a lot. So, what you said it was Billy and Tommy that set this up? What?
I believe so.
Okay, I feel like you're right. This is where they hired this black man that I don't know, I think someone works with him, one of their dads. I can't even remember now. But what we heard them discussing in the beginning, they're going to have this man pretend to bust in and chase them out of the house for trying to sleep with his wife. Supposedly, this woman was going to be his wife. So we get to this scene where they all go in this shack, they all meet this woman, but also they all have to strip down to nothing. So all of them are naked except for the two guys who are running this prank. I did think it was kind of funny because they were like, she has to inspect you for STDs. And someone's like, well, how can she tell? And they said, she's done this so many times, she's practically a doctor.
Yeah. And then like, how come you guys don't have to get naked? Oh, we were checked out last week. We're good.
Yeah. So they pull the prank. They pretend to, the two guys who know what's going on, they pretend to sleep with this woman, pretend to get interrupted by her pretend husband, pretend that he's stabbing them with a machete,
Yep.
and then all the other guys run away naked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I did.
someone was not naked, and I don't know who that. I think it might have been Brian, because maybe Brian was the one that was invited that caused Tim to, lash out. I forget,
I
but
don't even remember.
because someone fled the house and they were clothed. I don't know. Maybe he was just there to be there. That got lost in the sauce for me. The rest of the gang were naked, waiting their turn, And then when our actor comes out with a machete covered in fake blood, he scares them all away. Yeah, it was weird. I don't understand how any of this would be appealing. Like, hey, you and your closest five other friends, everyone just get naked and horny and wait their turn. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
does
I
not sound like a
really
good Friday night.
like I hated all of this. Like, especially because there's a point where Pee Wee is like trying to decide what order they should go in, and just like I don't know. I
Yeah,
again, I don't think that things are funny just because of shock value or just because it's scandalous. At this point already, I feel like I'm being hit over the head so much with the sex jokes. It's like not really that funny anymore.
it's like the first half hour, not even.
Yeah, we haven't even like heard about Porky's, I don't think. We definitely haven't seen it anyway.
Besides in the opening,
Right.
I did find it funny where the prank works so well that everyone runs out of the shack naked through the woods. They pulled a good prank. They end up corralling everyone else, but they couldn't find Pee Wee. Pee Wee must be a track athlete or something because he's just gone. And what was funny to me about that is now we introduced to these cop characters, one of them being Mickey's older brother. And he's like, "Hey, I know that naked guy." And they, pull a U-turn and they pull, and like the whole scene is like they're messing with him. They pull him over, like literally put the lights on, ask him to pull over, ask for his ID. This guy's clearly has nothing on him. And so that scene was kind of funny, and it reminded me of Super Troopers, just like cops being funny and pranking the pedestrian.
I also thought it was funny that setup to this scene was the two cops sitting in their cruiser, and one said something like, "Oh, it's a slow night, nothing's even happening," and the other one says, "Oh, just wait," and then they see a naked Pee Wee running down the street, like
Yeah,
probably expecting a speeder, if anything, and I was like, "Oh, this naked guy." So yeah, that was kind of funny. However, they all end up at like a beach snack shack, or maybe it's just a
it looks like a drive-in
restaurant on the
diner.
beach. Yeah, that's what it was. Drive-in diner. Thank you. Um, I was about to say, like a Swenson's kind of thing.
Yep, yeah.
Yep. But anyway, uh, my hyper local descriptions for everything. Tim's dad shows up on a motorcycle, which it took me a little bit to understand that this was Tim's dad. I don't know if that was my fault or the dialogue's fault, but
No, it was the movie's fault. He just shows up on a motorcycle, pulls up next to the car, and the cops who just dropped Pee Wee off are also in the scene. And some random girl is on the back.
who definitely looks
And
like a student, by the way, or it looks like
so I
she could be
couldn't,
young enough to be a high school student.
right. So I couldn't tell if this was his date or his daughter, but they don't mention having a sister. So that was weird. And he's
Hmm.
like drinking a beer while driving a motorcycle. So he just looks like a bad seed altogether.
Hmm.
And then we find out through a character, like I think literally Billy leans over and explains to somebody else who is just as confused as we are, that's so and so's dad. Oh, thanks dialogue, I wouldn't have picked that up.
Yeah, but it's really weird because we find out he just got out of prison. It's alluded that he beats Tim up, that he's an angry, drunk, a no good father. But I was confused as to why this guy who doesn't really give a shit about his son is just showing up at the snack shack to yell at him. How does he even know where he is? Like, what's even happening?
I don't have answers for that.
And he, like we said, he has a date with him too. So it's like, don't you have better things to do? Like, are you on a date right now? And this is, you're like, I'm going to go find my son, yell at him some more. I think she's supposed to be his girlfriend because we see her again later. But
Oh,
she
we do?
does look briefly. I'll point it out. But we're
Okay.
getting ahead of ourselves with all of this. But yeah, I think she's supposed to be his girlfriend, and she looks very young, definitely much younger than him.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like could be his son's age.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
But he comes there and he yells at him because a black man had made him scared and run away or something. There's a quick line, we're like, what was that? And he makes Tim leave because he's upset with him that he didn't stand his ground against a colored guy or whatever term he used. It wasn't probably nice.
mm-hmm.
So he was just there to be racist and show that he is very mean to Tim.
But then how does he know about the prank? Because you're right,
I
he
don't
does
know.
say something like, I'm so mad that my kid was a coward when he was confronted by a black man. But how does his dad know this just happened?
Right. Does his dad know he was also naked and running through the woods? There was a machete. Like, there's a lot of questions. I don't. We're not here to answer questions. We're here to ask them, apparently.
Yeah, because none of them are getting answered.
The important part, though, is this is where we finally learn about Porky's. Because Mickey is the one that talks about it when they're at the beachfront snack shack drive-in thing.
When they're at the
And
Swensons.
they're at the future Swensons. And he's telling him about Porky's, and the camera doesn't move, and he goes up to like the window counter to pick up food, and his back is to the camera. And it just bugged me because they clearly did not mic the actor. They didn't move the boom mics or something, because he literally is talking, and all of a sudden he sounds like he's talking like this, and then he's loud again. And I was like, what is going on here? You couldn't follow that man with a boom mic for 3 feet?
No.
Yeah, fair enough. But he explains to the group that there's a place to go to. They don't mind underage drinkers. He talks about the ladies you can rent, and they're all excited to go except for
The
Billy.
ladies you can rent.
That is
I'm
what's
sorry, I
happening.
know what you mean. It just sounded so funny, and obviously it was a delayed reaction on my part.
And
Yeah.
Billy is the only one who's like, maybe we shouldn't do that. It's so far away. I heard it's a bad neighborhood. They do different things down there. We also have a game that's important the next day. They're, on a basketball team. And Billy does not go down there, at least not the first time. He only goes down there at the end when they seek revenge. He is not a part of the group when they are drinking and all that other stuff.
Which one's Billy?
He's the taller one, parted hair.
God. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering why he just suddenly came back.
He's just the sensible one. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to be doing all these things. He's always the one calming everybody down.
Yeah, you're right.
I like Billy.
Okay, so I got one question answered. Why did Billy pop in and out of this movie?
Yeah, he did not want to go
Um,
down there.
yeah, no, he did not. So before we get to Porky's, literally, there's this scene where I think they're trying to prank Pee Wee again or just make him feel bad, and they give him this giant condom. And I guess it's Tommy that ends up blowing it up, and he's pretending to ram people as if, it's his
Yeah,
giant dick. And he's not really watching where he's going. He ends up ramming Ballbricker. And I did think that was funny.
that was pretty funny. It was mostly funny that when he rammed her, the condom deflated and made that very comical deflating sound.
Oh, yeah.
That was the cherry on that joke.
Yes. So, yes, they get to Porky's. I could have sworn that when they were first discussing Porky's, the establishment, they were talking about it being 70 miles away in the Everglades, something like that.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay, so that comes into play later. um, but basically, Porky's is this Scooby Doo looking swamp bar. Like you said, there's a moat around it.
There's a moat. Yeah.
Yep. You gotta cross over a tiny little bridge with your car. Porky has, I mean, it's a bar, there's exotic dancers. He has a security team, which are people sitting up in the rafters with rifles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pigs. There are
And
pigs in
pigs.
there.
Yeah. Also pointed out that when they order beers, the beers only cost $1.
Well, it only cost $1 to us, but I think it was expensive to them because the one boy said, "I got this, fellas," and pulls out $1, and the bartender says, "No, I meant each," and then they
Yeah.
all pull $1 out. So I guess it's expensive in 1954. I don't know. Ask one of the parents if how much beer cost at a dive bar back then. I did
Okay.
find it funny. Speaking of things costing money, there is of course a dancer, and she's in, like a very was a nice like Vegas showgirl type top and bottom. She looked very like she looked
Yeah,
like more of a
like a
dancer than like a
showgirl bikini kind of
showgirl
thing.
bikini. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
And she's flirting with Pee Wee, and he's of course loving it. And she's like rubbing the top of her chest. She's like, "Do you want to see?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she holds up two fingers and says two, as in dollars. And Pee Wee reacts, going, "Oh yeah, I'll see both of them."
Yeah.
Or show me both or something like that. I laughed at that part because it just shows how young and naive they are and how dumb and eager and horny.
Yeah, I did think that was funny. I also was dying when Porky himself, Porky the man who owns this place, enters the scene. There's subtle pig snorting in the background.
See, I don't think it was subtle. I think it was very overt. I mean, he also, so we just see his legs in the rafters, and underneath
Hmm.
is where the other pig, like the actual animal pigs are. And I
Hmm.
think it was supposed to be like, yes, that's where the noise is coming from. But to your point, it's signifying that Porky the man has arrived. Also, there's a lovely shot of a male pig's giant testicles right away. I thought that was
Oh, I
very
missed
fun to
that.
watch. Oh, well, that's great.
That's great.
It's when he
Uh,
you first see his feet and you start hearing the pig noises, and there's a a black furred pig, and the camera pans, and then it's the back half of the pig, and like, whoa, that's some giant pig testicles right in our face.
so subtle.
Mm.
Yep.
It was the subtlety that really sold the movie, and that's why Teen Wolf wanted to be just like it.
The subtlety really sold it. Oh, I couldn't help feeling like with this whole introduction, like, okay, I get that his name is Porky, okay? But he is a large man,
Mm.
very large, and you have the pig noises surrounding his introduction. I couldn't help feeling like they were trying to make a fat joke.
Of
And I
course,
don't think that's quite what they were going for, but that's how it came off.
I think it's what they were going for because at one
Okay.
point Mickey calls him a fat guy a couple times. He gets when he gets all mad
Okay.
at him. They're not hiding
I
his girth. He's a big boy.
Yeah, I guess I would just felt like showing the pig testicles indicates that he's like the big swinging dick of this establishment, not necessarily like, hey, fat boy.
I think, yeah, those are
There's
both
mixed
things.
messages.
Porky's is about layers. There's lots of layers here. It's a very smart comedy. I want to put that out there. It'll take me multiple views just to understand all of it.
Well, apparently I missed the pig testicles on this viewing, so
This is what I thought they were. I don't know. It was a quick shot, but I was like, oh, I didn't need to see that. But it is what it is.
I didn't need to see any of this. Let's be real here. But anyway, okay. So, long story short, because this is where our this is where the rest of our story comes from. The boys all try to buy some time to sleep with some of the women at Porky's. They don't have enough money for them each to have a girl to themselves, so they come up with some deal for like two or three girls and they're going to share. I don't know. But
Did you ever remember those commercials for Mr. Allen's shoes? 29 to a 50? That's what this situation was. But yeah, they
um
negotiate three girls for five guys for 30 minutes.
someone just please like get Pee Wee laid cuz then he'd be so much less annoying. That's really where I was at this point in the movie. But I feel like Porky says something about them being underage and kind of says he'll look past it, but you could tell he's up to something, like he's not being totally forthcoming with his plans.
Yeah.
Basically herds all the boys into a dark room and the whole bar goes quiet so they can all hear the boys like fall through this trapdoor into the water. And so
Right.
the boys
Yeah.
are out of however much money. They don't get to sleep with any girls and Porky's yelling at them to like go home or whatever, and he clocks them as being from this town that they actually are from. I assume they think they're just preppy boys from the nice suburb that they don't want around there.
They some city folk.
Yeah, there you go. That is what they do. And once they crawl out of the water, the cops show up who are very loyal to Porky because the sheriff is Porky's brother. And they just
Mm-hmm.
start busting headlights on their cars and being like, oh, well, that's this much of a fine. That's another fine. And I did not understand why this was all happening other than I could understand the first thing just being like, let's scare these underage kids into not coming back because that could get Porky in trouble. But I just didn't understand everything else. Like, why do they hate these boys so much?
I think it all was to scare him away. So at first, when the cop was there and smashing headlights, and I was like, "Oh, this fucking asshole! This guy's just
Mhm.
abusing his power," which he still
I
was.
mean, yeah, he was.
But then, as the rest of the scene kind of played out, and he's like, "Well, you could pay this fine for this tail light and this headlight and blah 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 blah," or there is other punishment for coming down here, being underage, drinking. And he's obviously not going to get Porky in trouble because he's Porky's brother. Because the kids can get in trouble because they all kind of had fake-ish IDs, or they tried to have
Oh,
fake
right.
IDs. So they were kind of like really trying to scare him and get him to not come back. Tactics are questionable, sure, but I think that was the overall play. Like, you're not man enough yet to be down here, kids, and you're also like too soft because you're from the city. Yeah, that this rubs Mickey the wrong way. He's the one that wants to fight Porky, and then he ends up back in the water, a second time. That's when the cops show up, and Mickey like vows to get back at Porky
Yes.
because he's
Uh,
so embarrassed he fell in the water. And
yeah, I was so confused about the chip that Mickey has on his shoulder. I mean, it's not like I would have enjoyed any of this either, but this is why I bring up how far away they said that Porky's was from their town because we don't actually see Mickey go back to Porky's, but we know he's been going back and then he'll show up at like the snack shack and pass out because they've beaten him up again.
yeah,
But you're telling me he's been driving 70 miles each way and then like all beat up and then he's finally able to like pass out once he gets back to the snack shack or the school dance
yeah, that's pretty bad.
because it's not like this is in the same town or anything. They made it sound like it was a decent drive away.
Yeah,
How's
it's
he
one
even
other
driving
county
himself
over.
home? Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, I'm just glad you also did not understand. But this is also when Tim beats up Brian, the Jewish kid on the basketball team. There's a line later where a couple of them are talking to Brian and they're trying to defend Tim's actions and saying like his dad's hard on him, whatever. And they say that Brian didn't help either because he was putting Tim down. And
I don't
I
recall.
I don't know what Brian did to supposedly put this guy down other than to point out he was using a racial slur incorrectly. But, like, he has every right, in my opinion, to defend himself in this situation. So,
I'm assuming it. We're just supposed to assume that something happened prior to our knowledge. Like, I don't know,
I don't know.
the whole school year has gone by, so maybe he was putting him down before. I don't think that's the case, but I'm just gonna assume that for some reason Tim feels put down by Brian. I don't know who Brian was till he picked a fight with him because he's like the other boy that's not in the group.
Yeah. And
So
again, no real, like, distinguishing characteristics. Like, oh, another boy with brown hair. Like, I don't know.
right.
It's hard to keep them all straight. But
And then Brian jumps in his nice ass car and drives away.
he has a really nice car.
It's
Yeah,
a really nice car.
I
I was
noticed
like,
that too.
okay, well, no stereotypes here.
I know. Oh, I
Maybe
thought
that's
the
why
same
Tim's upset.
thing. I know.
One of the many subplots, Pee Wee and this girl, Wendy, I believe,
Yeah.
have a back and forth. They're trying to prank each other. Also, the guys are trying to get Wendy to sleep with Pee Wee, so Pee Wee shuts the hell up about getting laid. But she's like, I don't know. Apparently, Wendy is loose with her morals. That's the gist of that from what I picked up on the conversations.
But still won't sleep with Pee Wee for whatever reason.
Because he's annoying.
I mean, yeah, probably.
So Pee Wee really wants to get back at Wendy, who is working the Shake Shack stand, snack stand, and he calls from a payphone and asks if his friend is there. Michael Hunt, Mike to his friends. So she's yelling, "Has anyone seen Mike Hunt? Can someone tell me where Mike Hunt is? What my Hunt looks like?" And again, this is the looser morale girl, so to speak. And one of the boys are like, "Oh, we've all seen it," or whatever, something like that. And I couldn't help but think of The Simpsons when Bart constantly calls Moe's Tavern and does pranks. Well, one of the early ones is the same joke but flipped for gender, and it's Mike Roch, and it's
Yeah.
like almost the same scene. I kind of wonder if Porky's actually did inspire something that was actually funny.
That was actually funny. Yeah, I also thought of prank calling Moe's when I saw this. Right after this happens, we cut to all the guys, sitting in the diner snack shack thing. Meat has apparently not gotten into Princeton, which was what he was really going for, which is just not all in line with any of these characters, so that's fine, whatever. He's drunk and upset because he didn't get into Princeton. He falls asleep in a bowl of chili, and I swear I had seen the chili scene before. And so that's why,
Hmm.
like, I'm very confused about whether I've seen this movie before, but I remembered the chili. And Brian really saves the day because some cops come by and they're like, I've never seen someone drown in a bowl of chili before. And I did kind of think that he fell face first. And now he's like probably breathing in chili. But Brian tells the cops that his girlfriend left him. And one of the cops says, if my wife left me, I'd get drunk for joy.
50s humor.
Yep.
But they let him pass. Like, just get him home, kids.
Yep.
So Brian saves the day. He's a nice fella after all.
He really is, yeah. This is, again, like we said, one of the times we see Mickey coming back from trying to beat up Porky or whatever he's trying to do to get revenge on Porky. And he's either drunk or beat to shit or both and just managed to still somehow drive away and get all the way back into town and to the snack shack and then pass out.
Yeah. He just shows up bloody faced. Billy's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" He's like, "It's Porky." Like, it's like falls over into his
It's
lap.
really bad. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like this kid isn't doing a great job of acting like he's hurt or passing out or any of it. Like it's all just really cringy, and I'm just sitting here wondering why he keeps going back. How is he able to drive 70 miles back when he's this injured? It just
Right.
more questions than answers. This is where we get to Kim Cattrall's big scene. One of the coaches, the younger coach, is taking Kim Cattrall up to the equipment room. There is another eel reference, something about squirming like a pair of eels in heat.
Hmm.
What is it about eels?
Maybe it's a Florida thing.
It's very niche. It's 1950s Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So this just so the younger male coach is taking her up to the equipment room. Ballbreaker kind of stops them on the stairs momentarily, and Kim Cattrall just yells at her.
Yeah.
It's so over the top, though. I like again. I don't find this stuff funny because it's so unbelievable and so over the top. Like, oh, she's gonna yell at this woman for saying, "Hey, you shouldn't go have sex at the school while you're supposed to be coaching minors."
Well, yes. So Kim Cattrall, her character's kind of flirty, playing hard to get. She keeps telling young coach guy, "I don't do that. I don't do that in the first date." I think she says that she's a virgin still. I don't know. Maybe I'm just confused with all the other characters. So they're just on the steps kind of flirting, but Ballbreaker obviously sees what's going on or sees the male teacher's intent. And that's when she confronts him. But then out of nowhere, Kim Cattrall is like berating her, calling her all these, names because she's, a heavier set woman and all this other stuff. And then Ballbreaker's like, I'm gonna get you fired because you're not allowed to be doing this. And then when she leaves, Kim Cattrall's like, "That's it. Now we're doing it." It's like, oh, all right. Well, nothing turns me on like yelling at another person, berating them on this on public property.
Well, no, nothing turns her on like the boys' locker room.
That was weird. I didn't like any of that.
Yeah,
They go
so
up steps and like there's like sweaty socks and
jock
gross looking.
straps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like, it smells like I can smell it through the laptop. I like this smells like just bad feet. Like it just
Yep.
looks gross. She's like, "Oh my gosh, the smell in here just really turns me on." And then she says, "Why does every time it turns me on?" Like, wait a minute, excuse me, what? Every time you're up here, what now?
Yeah, so if you have not seen Porky's, she goes on for quite a bit about how much the boys' locker room always turns her on, like each time. And I wrote, wait, she's turned on by the boys' locker room? What even is this movie? And I really just, again, I can't help feeling like this is just some guy writing like what he wishes a woman
Hmm.
would be. And again, everything's been so over the top to this point that like maybe like one line would have been funny or something. Like
Yeah,
her sniffing one of these things would have been funny, but it's just everything's gone on so much. Like her yelling at Ballbricker, like I don't know. Everything's just so over the top and I don't really find it funny.
it just seems like Bob Clark kept forgetting to call cut
Yes, that too.
on
I could
every
see
scene.
that.
It's like, okay, that's enough. We're still going. All right, 5 more minutes. All right, 5 more minutes.
Well, yes, and that brings us to probably the, I don't know, one of the more famous parts of this movie where they do finally do it in the boys' locker room and she howls supposedly like a dog, like Lassie. I think she sounds more like an ambulance personally.
Yes, it's yeah, it's not like oh, it's like wow, 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 and we're like, whoa, who does this?
And again, when it first starts, you're like, oh, wow, okay. And it's kind of like funny once.
Hmm.
But then the scene just keeps going. And at one point, I thought they were done. And then they just started again. Like you said, it felt like he forgot to yell cut. And I just personally feel like dragging it out makes it less funny, but that's me.
The only part I thought was funny is so they're not quite in the boys' locker room exactly. They are above it in the equipment shed, but it's the boys' stuff, and it almost looks like a clock tower. The only point I'm making here is it her ambulance noise resonates through the rest of the gym. So like the
Mm,
students hear it, the other teachers hear it. The older coach that told the young coach about Lassie, he's my favorite part because he loses his shit and he's like hiding behind a mat laughing while
yeah, I
an
did think that was
even
funny.
right and then like he's not an older coach but like looks like maybe the head coach is a third coach that shows up out of nowhere and he
Yeah.
finds the older guy laughing. He's like, "What's so funny?" He's like, "Oh, nothing. It's just I think something I thought about earlier today, or some weird excuse." But the old man laughing hysterically, I thought was the best part.
Yeah, I did think his reaction was funny. I just felt like they were getting so many exaggerated reaction shots from like every other extra in that room that just it went on too long.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, it is supposed to be the equipment room, but it's also full of their dirty laundry.
Something. It's weird.
None of it makes sense. It's
It's
fine.
okay.
Yeah, but after this scene, first of all, I remember seeing some of this, and that's why I am starting to wonder if it was more like a VH1 80s clip show that I saw because now I remember her like howling, but I also kind of understand why people were concerned that maybe Kim Cattrall had ruined her career. Because also, it's just not well done at all. Like, you can tell the sounds aren't even like matching her mouth. Like, her mouth is moving differently than the sounds. It's just,
Yeah, I don't know why I just
it's,
didn't have her
it's,
make the sounds. It's definitely a different sound that she's
mm-hmm.
pantomiming. It was
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, anyway. So Then,
So from the boys' locker room to the girls' locker room.
yes, the same three guys are trying to spy on the girls in the showers again. They succeed this time, which I guess I wasn't expecting like literal full frontal nudity.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have. I don't know.
At
Maybe
this
that's why
point, you
this
probably
movie
should
was
have.
so popular. Yeah, at this point I should have. Yeah, I guess I was expecting more nudity because it was an 80s movie, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But then we went from getting really not much to then a lot of more explicit shots than I would have expected.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I feel like I we were getting into NC-17 territory. I was a little surprised.
I don't know if it was that bad. I don't know. I mean, I think it's content or context over content for that situation because
Okay.
there are a good number of full frontal actresses in the shower scene, but they're just kind of standing around being underwater. I don't think that would make it
Okay.
NC-17. I don't know. I feel like there's a line there, and I don't think they quite crossed it.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Well, poor Pee-wee, who like has yet to get laid still, is incredibly frustrated because one of the larger women is showering in front of his peephole. He eventually yells something like, "Hey, move it, lard ass," which
Hmm.
obviously was just great, and gives away the fact that they're behind the wall. Eventually, this leads to it's Tommy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Tommy sticking his dick through the hole to try to rile up the girls or whatever. Can't believe this is what I'm describing right now on this podcast. And Ballbricker bursting in and grabbing his dick from the other side because she's like, I finally got you. I finally caught you in the act.
Yeah.
In this moment, I felt like I understood Martha Coolidge saying she couldn't believe the script she was reading because I was like, I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but this has all gone far beyond whatever I thought was going to happen in this movie. So,
Yeah. And another scene where it's just like, yep, we get it. It can be over now. Nope. I mean, she was tugging on it for a while.
yes, that too. Then we go immediately to a scene that I think is supposed to be the principal's office, where she is like insisting on doing a lineup of penises because she's like, I know which one is his. I could tell you that he's the culprit and I'd finally have him. And that was funny because she's trying to convince these two old men to like let her do a penis lineup, and one of this old man is British. Like I don't know where he came from.
Yeah. The principal is British. By the way, I forget his first name, but this is the Christmas actor, something Christmas. This is the guy.
I feel like that makes sense that he's British.
Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah.
Um, Another scene that went on way too long because the joke was, "Hey, I can identify the culprit. I've seen it up close and personal. Give me a lineup." And then at one point she's like, "Well, they can wear hoods so they don't feel as embarrassed, like over their faces." Like, well, it
Yeah.
makes it worse somehow. I don't know how, but it does.
Yeah.
And so then we have the three other coaches in the background laughing the whole time while she's trying to talk to the principal. And he makes a couple jokes, but it just goes on too long, and they're like laughing over the dialogue. This is gone on way too long.
Yeah, this scene went on so long. And like I said, I thought it was funny at first when she's like, let me do a lineup of a bunch of different penises and I'll know which one is his. Like, that was funny once.
Yeah.
But it also went on so long that I was second guessing who the older men were supposed to be because at first I thought maybe they had called his dad in to
Uh huh.
school And then I was like, well, this guy maybe is his dad, and this guy maybe is the principal. And then she was talking about lineups, so I was like, are they at the police station? But
Mm-hmm.
then if one of them is his dad, why is he like so much older? Like that's a really old, like this could be his grandfather. And
Yeah.
this was all going on in my head through this whole scene, and it, like you said, just way too long.
The only other funny moment is this principal who is ancient, didn't like private parts or penis or all of these words. And he's very British for some reason in the middle of Florida. And he's like, from this point forward, can we just call it a tallywhacker? And I was like, that's
Yeah.
so random. I would be more concerned with this female teacher wanting to see a bunch of naked men in my school, these
Hmm.
boys, than how we describe or what name we call it.
Yeah, that too.
That's your concern.
Yep.
Interesting.
Hmm. So then we cut to a random school dance that no one has ever mentioned before. Took me a second to realize what we were even doing because
Yeah.
suddenly we're not at the snack shack. We're
No.
just, oh, it's a school dance. Again, Tim's dad randomly pops up to yell at him.
Yeah.
Why is this man everywhere that teenagers hang out?
He's got a teenage
Just,
date
I mean, that is true. Yeah, because his date is there
in high
again.
school. He's probably a student. He was picking her up.
Taking her to the dance. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, so this is when Tim basically stands up to his dad and is like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm not going to be scared of you anymore. And I think Tim also had, a moment of realization that maybe, like, it's okay that that one kid is Jewish, basically. Um,
Well, so that's why he's there. He's there because he's mad that Tim got beat up by a Jewish kid.
oh, right.
Because and the kid like knows boxing and jujitsu, but he's Jewish, so he can't be better than Tim because of that.
Right. I forgot about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, his dad shows up to harass the minority student now.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And Tim stands up for Brian, which is nice.
first of all, Tim Tim has a line where he says to his dad, "If being a man means being what you are, I would rather be queer." Which again, like, just fine, fine, whatever. It's the 80s. It's the 50s. Whatever. I hate this. Given the multiple instances of certain slurs in this past season, I was expecting more of this in Porky's.
Hmm. What I liked about that line is the mental toll it probably took on Tim's dad being a bigot. He was saying his son in the 50s, his son said he'd rather be queer than be a man like him. So that was like a double insult. I know out of context, we're like, oh, well, in 2026, it sounds bad. 1954, saying that to your biggity father, like, really is like the 1-2
Sure.
punch.
I will go with you on this.
I mean, it's a stretch, yes, but it's trying to put the time contextual stamp on that, so to speak.
Because they see that as not being like a
A
man,
manly
like
man,
not being
yeah,
manly. Yeah.
yeah, I get it.
The other thing I kept wondering is why are there no other adults at this dance? Why isn't a teacher running out to be like, hey, random man off the street, don't come here and beat up our students? Finally, one teacher runs
One
out and is
teacher,
very ineffectual
yeah, the older brother was the one that punched his dad, the sheriff or
for the
assistant
cop.
sheriff, whatever the cop. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was there too, which is weird.
I mean, at least someone was. I don't know. There apparently weren't many adults.
No.
So anyway, uh Mickey pops up again. Like after this whole confrontation, then Mickey crashes into the school dance because he's just gotten beaten up at Porky's again.
Yeah.
Like same thing. Beat up so bad that he faints, rinse repeat.
Hmm.
How did he even get back here? Who knows? Just wrote like he's constantly driving 70 miles there and back and waiting to crash out once he's fine. Once he's finally in a group of his friends, and somehow he always knows where all his friends are gonna be. Like he doesn't go home or anything.
Right. He just shows up at the dance. It was Porky. Ugh.
That is exactly how it is, though. Like,
Hmm.
jeez. Okay. $130 million.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay. So I wrote that this is where I started feeling like everything was so anticlimactic because this movie is called Porky's. We still have not been back to Porky's in this movie. We just kind of hear about it
Yeah.
in
Jarvis has
these.
been back, but we have not.
Oh,
Like
is that
the
Mickey?
Yeah, they kept some of them called him
Okay,
Jarvis, some of
okay.
them called him Mickey. I kept getting confused. At one point I thought they were two separate characters. Then I realized it was Mickey Jarvis. Like, damn it.
Mickey Jarvis is a really dumb name.
Because I think Billy keeps calling him Jarvis and the rest of them just call him Mickey. And for a second I thought they were separate people. Dale Biederman.
No, I was gonna say Kerbo.
No, I knew who Kerbo was. I didn't know who Dale Biederman was.
No, I just feel like everyone could maybe be consistent with how their characters are referred to, and that would make things clearer.
Right. It's like all of a sudden we got a guest on the podcast and they start calling you Bob and no one knows why.
Why would my name be Bob? In
I,
any, like, why would a nickname of mine be Bob?
I don't know, Boof. Why don't you tell me?
Anyway. Oh my god. Okay, so.
So, third time's a charm for Mr. Mickey Jarvis, and everyone's like, "That's it. We gotta get Porky back, but we clearly have to go as a group because he is beating up our underage friend all the time." The young coach decides to join in, and they kept calling him coach. He's like, "No, my name's I don't know what his name doesn't matter. Young coach." He's like, "I'm not a good coach anyway." He also knows he's about to get fired for fornicating on school property with the other lady.
Right. But
Um,
it was funny how he said that. He's like, it's fine. I'm not a good coach anyway.
Brian has some sort of idea, and they're all going to meet back somewhere at 4 o'clock in the morning. And long story short, is they go to Porky's. They sabotage a couple cop cruisers on the way in because it's basically the neighbor to Porky's. Also, it's his brother, as we mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
They saw a couple of things. The one bridge that goes to Porky's, the building. Then they apparently set up dynamite on the other bridges that go to the parking lot that goes to Porky's. And so they sit around all night, and once it appears that no one's left in the building, which I realize now makes sense, Billy, of all characters, go in there because he's the one that hasn't been there since, or at all, I should say. He's like, I need to talk to Porky. Send his ass outside. We're going to beat you guys up. And they get all riled up and they go outside, and both. There's two other kids in a boat, and they start pulling some chains in one direction, and Billy and the gang is in a tow truck and they pull in the other direction. This scene takes too long, but eventually the bridge collapses and they all fall in the water. And then they continue pulling on these chains, and then the entire house collapses, or
Yeah.
the facility of Porky's, I should say. And then they get all mad and get in their little Porky mobile.
I need you. It's literally a Porky mobile. It's
Yeah,
pink. It makes pig noises.
the hood
Like,
ornament's a little pig.
yes,
I mean, this man is branded, so I'll give it to him for that.
sure.
He's like, my name's Porky. I'm gonna roll with this, and everything is Porky. It's pig related. To your point, they are driving away slowly, but then we realize why. Jarvis jumps out and he like blows up one of the bridges, and then the second one doesn't blow up for whatever reason.
Hmm.
So now they're in a medium speed chase, I guess.
Right. Well, like, I figured part of the reason they were going so slow is because they were driving this, like, heavy tow truck.
Right.
But yeah, because the last bridge doesn't detonate, they get into not quite a high speed chase.
Yeah. Uh, the cops try to get involved, and they did something with their cars where one goes in reverse instead of drive, and the other one, all the tires fall off.
Hmm.
So just the sheriff jumps in the Porky mobile, and
Yep.
They get to the county line where they are met with what seems to be the entire school district. There is literally a marching band there, several school buses. There is Tim's older sheriff brother, and they
No,
get to
wait,
the county line.
is it Tim's brother?
No, maybe it's Mickey's brother.
What?
Yeah, it's
Someone's
Mickey's brother.
brother. It's fine.
Yeah,
Whatever.
they're all
Oh yeah,
rednecks. They
yeah.
all
Yeah. It's
yeah,
Mickey's brother, right?
Mickey's brother. Tim's
Jarvis.
got the dad. Mickey's got the sheriff brother. Sure.
Sure.
Um, they get there. They get out. Porky shows up. He's like, "Give me them boys. They owe me for my house." And the sheriff's trying to be nice. Like, why don't we call a spade a spade? I won't get you in trouble for serving these minors booze and, trying to get them to have relationships with your women there. He's like, that's probably a really good idea. And his sheriff brother, for some reason, is really hot under the collar. And he's like, no, F you, F that, blah, 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 blah. And then we get,
Porky's sheriff brother.
yes, yeah, sorry, too many sheriff brothers. Um,
Yeah.
and so the good sheriff brother, I forget his name, but Tim's brother, no, Mickey's
No,
brother,
Mickey's.
Boof. The roles are reversed now. He's like, well, you're in my county and it's more expensive up here. And he smashes his headlight. He's like, this is going to cost you this much. And then he like shoots a tire out. He just basically damages the guy's car.
He like
Um,
shoots up. Like his car is not drivable
no,
because he.
he blows a tire and shoots the radiator all with a
That was it. I
shotgun.
thought it was the radio. Yeah, and also takes out the pig ornament,
I mean, that's going too far in my opinion.
of course.
Uh,
Yeah, so what I learned here is that I guess once you cross the county line, the other cops can be like, no, I'm not handing them over, no matter what
mhm.
they did. I understand it helps when that cop is your brother. But yes, you are not exaggerating any of this. The whole damn school is there with music and a school bus and
Mhm.
the band, and it's a lot.
But they
I
got
had
him.
oh yeah.
They got that Porky.
When the cops on Porky's side of things are getting ready to go, catch these kids who are tearing down Porky's, the one cop says, "Grab everything that kills."
Oh yeah. Yeah. What?
Yep. So yeah, they're all like celebrating. Tim and Brian do some part of this together where they're on like little boats in the water together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, Tim's learned to, you know, work with minorities. So
Yeah.
they're cool.
Life lessons were happening.
Right, right. And then at the very
And
end,
then, well, first, yes, but I will say I was surprised how calm and level-headed Porky the man was when all this was happening. They're destroying his car. He kept thinking about the one line, the very first line the sheriff said, the good sheriff, our sheriff, about like serving minors and getting into trouble.
hmm
And you would think that Porky's sheriff brother would understand that, being a man of the law. He just keeps wanting like to yell at the other
he's just
guy.
so hot-headed, yeah.
Yeah,
And like Porky basically realized that in order to press charges or whatever, he'd have to explain that these kids were at his establishment before
exactly. Yep.
and they're underage. And yeah, he has to stop his sheriff brother and be like, oh no, we were
We're
mistaken. It
yeah.
wasn't them.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're push our car out of your county now. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
But then, somehow there was a bet involved here
Yeah.
between Billy and Wendy, in which Billy wins, to which Wendy now has to sleep with Pee Wee.
Yes. So basically, Pee Wee finally gets laid, except they
Mm-hmm.
do it in the school bus while everyone stands around watching.
I mean, they're outside, and I'm assuming they
I mean,
can't see
yeah, they're all
anything, but
standing around the
they're
bus
they're there cheering them on.
cheering.
Rah rah, let's go.
And at one point, Pee Wee like kind of hangs himself out the window and is cheering. And I'm like, I don't know how you're doing that while you're supposed to be doing the other thing. Like, I don't.
Yeah, because then Wendy pulls him back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get a weird first person shot through like the muck and Everglades. And I'm like, okay, so was this leaning into Black Christmas? Are we getting our first person killer here? it's Miss Ballbreaker, and she literally football tackles Tommy and like is pulling his pants off. Like, I know it was you. Let me see it. Let me see it. I was like, oh my god, this guy is in high school, so he's there's
So it looks very
what?
bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, she's gone crazy because she finally has proof that he's, and to be fair, he was spying on naked students, like, which is horrible, but it's
Hmm.
just a joke.
I feel like it's worse when the teacher is obsessed with seeing a student's private parts. To like, it just seems
Yeah.
weird, right?
Oh, I
Uh,
know. It's funny because you think, like, oh my God, this woman's crazy. But then it's also like, well, wait, though, because he also was, like, not right here.
well, right, yeah,
But yes, also don't attack the boy and yell that you need to see his penis.
yeah. I mean, she's supposed to be the adult, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And then we go from a full screen to three-quarter screen, and as the credits roll on the right hand side for a brief second, and then it gets a freeze frame. One of the kids look to the left, their left, which is right in the camera, and like makes a like a confusing like "Bleh," or something. But like it was weird. Like the only time they broke the fourth wall was for a half second, and then it
It's so
froze.
quick. Mm-hmm.
And like, what was that about?
Yep. The end.
He basically was like, "This is Porky's," and then like freezes.
That is, yeah, he just kind of gives it a shrug, like,
Yeah, and I think he's trying to say
yeah.
a word, but it gets there's freeze framed, and I think it cuts it out. But he's like, "Bleh." Like it's a weird noise,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
that's the end. That's
that's
Porky's.
it. Yep. That's Porky's.
Um,
$130 million.
if anyone who might be listening and also likes Porky's at the same time, sorry if I ruined this movie for you, but it was not good. I don't
Nope.
get it.
Nope. Like, that's why I was wondering if it made so much money because people heard there was nudity or something.
Well, I mean, it's not like there wasn't nudity before in other movies. I
I
mean,
know.
the spying on the girls. How did that not remind you of Carrie? Like that's how that movie opens. That comes out 2 years prior.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah.
lot more innocent. I mean, yes, it's still a bunch of full frontal women in the shower, but no one's spying on them. It's just it's like soft music playing, and it's weird. But it's my point being, it's not like they're not naked people in movies before 1981.
Also, I think we learned in our most recent season that teen movies weren't necessarily as much of a thing. So maybe this was one of the few things out that was targeting that age range.
That's a good point. And maybe the marketing was actually towards that age range and not confused like the movies we talked about in the past. Like, oh, is it for 8 year olds or is it for 40-year olds? We don't know. It's never going to make any money.
So I watched the trailer.
Mm.
I mean, I think it's a pretty accurate representation of what you're going to get, but they do hype up what's behind this wall that the boys are peeping through. What goes
Mm.
on in the equipment room? Because you see like a quick flash of Kim Cattrall's character, like saying that that room turns her on or whatever. And there was one other thing, maybe it was like what really goes on at Porky's or something. But they do play up the whole like you won't believe what's in this movie kind of a thing.
Mm.
So
Okay. All right. Well, that worked.
apparently.
Listen, it made so much money that
Mhm.
not only did a bunch of studios want to replicate it, but it got some sequels.
Let's hear about them.
Ah, okay, if we must. All right, 1983. Birthed Porky's 2 the next day, directed and co-written by Bob Clark. I glossed over all these as little as possible for various reasons. Mostly just I was just curious, and it did look like most of the cast do come back. Unfortunately, no Kim Cattrall.
Okay.
Lassie did not make a comeback. Speaking of not coming back, despite its title, there is no Porky in this film.
I guess I don't really know how you would bring him back exactly, because it's not like they're allowed back there.
Listen, do not get ahead of me, Rachel. One sequel at a time, please.
Okay, sorry.
Porky's 2 the next day.
It's serious business. I'm sorry.
It's very serious. Porky, he's recovering from his losses, okay? So, what goes on in this movie is that the Angel Beach High School Drama Club is putting on a Shakespeare festival. But a local religious leader, Reverend Bubba, wants to
Okay.
cancel the festivities because Shakespeare is indecent and profane. And the final straw that breaks the bigot's back is that there will be an interracial kiss during Romeo and Juliet because John Henry, I believe is the character's name, he's a Seminole. Again, we're in Florida, so this is a native tribe down there. And Bubba does not want this interracial kiss to go on. So to really help, bring the thunder to cancel this festival, he calls the KKK.
Wow.
Yeah. So it gets canceled. The boys are upset. They are not going to stand for this bigotry. They get revenge on the Klan by tricking them that there's a meeting or maybe a rally, I don't know, at the school gym, which apparently is actually filled with the entire Seminole community. So like, oh, the one boy they also beat up the John Henry boy apparently. That's fun. So the one boy we beat up, his entire community's here. That's fun. They all hold down the Klansmen while Brian, who is our solo Jewish friend, shaves their heads and makes them run naked across some sort of stage that Bubba is having like a meeting at. Again, I glanced very quickly over this, but again, more making men run around naked to embarrass them. Also, the Reverend Bubba, they used to have meetings in his basement, and apparently that's where they would watch snuff films. So,
What the hell?
yeah, apparently Mr. Bubba is saying one thing and doing something else.
Naturally.
Mm-hmm. All right, 1985, Porky's Revenge, directed by James Comack. Mr. Bob Clark did not want to be in another Porky's film. He didn't want anything to do with this. The cast returns, as does Mr. Porky,
Oh,
hence the revenging.
of
Okay,
course.
so after his house falls into the river, maybe Porky's inspired by the antics of the boys, but he now has a riverboat with a casino and strip club on said boat. Apparently, he's extorting money from the basketball coach because the coach is into gambling and has gambling debt owed to Porky. So he's just, taking money from the coach.
Is it the same coach that was in the first movie?
Let's say sure for lack of research.
Okay, right.
I wanted to make this like a band-aid and rip it off. Because of the extortion, the gang, they really get together, help each other out. The gang decides to go to the boat, catch the illegal gambling, and, either get the coach out of the debt or blackmail Porky. However, on said boat, Porky's daughter Blossom apparently finds Meat very attractive and forces herself upon him. Unfortunately, Porky catches them in the act and says he's going to kill them all, kill the whole gang, but instead comes up with a new plan. He wants the basketball team, who is now made it into the championship game, to throw the game so he can bet against them. Because now he's into gambling and he's going to make a bunch of money off this high school basketball championship game.
Okay, it's fine. We're just going with it.
Oh, we're going with it. We're rolling down the river here. So somehow Meat is benched for the final game due to being intentionally failed a biology class from his teacher, Miss Webster. I guess he didn't want to dissect a frog. However, Miss Webster and Mr. Dabish, who is the school counselor, apparently they've been involved in some kinky activities that the boys find out. There are photos, I guess, of said activities. So they use this to blackmail to let Meat play in the game. So she unfails him, I guess, and he can play in the second half.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. They win the game, So, thusly, Porky loses his money in the bet. While he's mad and gonna seek revenge on Meat and the team, Blossom shows up again. Don't forget, this is his daughter, and says that her and Meat are boyfriend and girlfriend, and they won all the way. And then, so apparently, it's highly insinuated that they're going to be getting married by Porky and his men. Like, you're like, whoa, if you're guys who went all the way, we're going to get a shotgun wedding going.
Seems weird.
So during their senior prom, Meat gets kidnapped by Porky's men, and they are setting up said shotgun wedding. However, Billy and Brian go to save the day. They cut the power to the wedding. They help Meat escape via motorboats because they're on the riverboat casino strip club thing. Porky pursues them on the riverboat, but Pee-wee lowers a drawbridge just in time to have Porky's ship crash into it, destroying his boat. And that's probably the end, I guess. I don't know. Maybe someone else gets laid on a bus. Who knows? I wanted to note that the entire, well, maybe not the entire, but a big part of this riverboat plot line for Porky's Revenge reminds me of the segment in Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spent My Summer Vacation with Babs and Buster
Yes, I
with
thought that
with
too.
the alligator daddy. You're gonna marry one of my daughters.
I thought the
I
same
mean,
thing.
it could be. I mean, they make a direct deliverance reference in a cartoon, so why not Porky's 3?
Why not Porky's 3?
One wasn't good enough for Tiny Toons.
There are
If
three of
that,
these movies.
well, again, you're getting ahead of me. There are 3 movies total. Maybe there could be more. Remake? Anyone smell remake?
Oh my
Well,
god.
in 2002, Howard Stern smelled remake. He apparently acquired the rights to remake the film, the original Porky's, not 2 or 3. However, in 2011, they ran into some legal trouble. There were 2 other production companies that also claimed they owned the rights. And in 2013, all parties reached a confidential settlement. They reached a settlement, but no one knows what the settlement was. They all came to a conclusion, an agreement behind closed doors, and that was that.
I feel like if anyone was going to remake Porky's, I could see Howard Stern being part of this.
Oh, absolutely. However, there was more than just 3 films, Rachel. I'm sorry to tell you that Porky's Pimpin' Pee-wee, I'm not making that title up.
What the hell?
Porky's Pimpin' Pee-wee was a follow-up film, so not a direct sequel. It did have the actor that was Pee-wee. Long story short, Lontano Investments bought the rights in 94 and in '01 signed a contract with Mola Entertainment, which apparently this contract was amended several times. In '09, they made the film for under $1 million before the rights ran up, so it was a rush job. It was originally going to be called Porky's The College Years, and it went directly to video on demand, no DVD release. Mola claimed that they fulfilled their contract, so they should be able to retain their rights for another sequel, but Montano claimed otherwise, saying that they did not make nearly enough money they were supposed to make, and you do not continue to have the rights. A lawsuit ensued, which also affected, the previously mentioned Howard Stern remake. So this all got jumbled up in kind of one big Porky's mess.
Well, as we have seen many examples of, it's always great when you do a rush job before your rights run out.
Yeah, they for under $1 million, and I forget what it said it grossed. It wasn't much because it went to video on demand.
So it's funny that obviously Porky's was huge when it came out. Obviously, like we said in our previous season, every studio wanted the next Porky's. Everything needed to be more like Porky's. However, as you're talking through these like more recent, potential remakes, this more recent sequel, is there really an audience? Number one, is there an audience for this in general? I feel like this movie's sort of been forgotten about. It's not like I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's in a conversation of like great comedies or great comedies from the 80s or whatever. I also feel like everyone who is really into going to see this when they were the target audience I don't know if they really want to go see sequels at this point to Porky's.
I can't imagine.
And I also feel like our generation had things like American Pie that were like scandalous and kind of shocking when they came out. So it's like we already had similar movies, I feel.
Well, and there were also way too many American Pie movies. I mean,
Well, yeah.
American Pie is our Porky's.
Yeah. That all being said, though, I also kind of wonder about its enduring quote unquote popularity because we could not find this on any major streaming service.
That's a good point. Yes. It's so popular, you couldn't stream or rent it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Usually, when movies are not available on streaming services, you could at least rent them on Amazon Prime or on Apple, and you cannot even rent Porky's. There was a moment where I thought we just wouldn't be able to do this episode because I personally don't want to buy Porky's on DVD for
Yeah.
like $25.
Well, we could have done the
Um,
episode, but it would have been a lot shorter.
right? Um, so basically, what happened is Hoopla, which is one of the free streaming services, if you have a library card, for some reason has Porky's on it, and that's how we both watched it on Hoopla. I'm always curious when you can't even find it for rent.
Right.
Is it is there an issue with rights or legality, or is it a popularity issue? I don't know.
Maybe that was one of the parts of the confidential settlement is whoever has the
Right?
rights are like, you cannot stream this anywhere. I'm gonna hold on to this with my death grip.
But it was very funny to go from, like we said, it was constantly being brought up. Everyone was like, make another Porky's, got to be like Porky's, to the point that you and I are like, we should watch Porky's, that would be funny. And it was so popular. Granted, 40 years ago. I understand.
40
It's
plus
been
years
a
ago.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then to now, you can't really find it.
Mm-hmm. We should watch it. That'd be funny. It wasn't.
Yeah. I guess I didn't mean literally the movie would be funny, just it would be funny to do a bonus episode on Porky's because it kept coming up and we were like, why is everyone obsessed with Porky's?
Oh,
Um,
I knew what you meant.
yeah, yeah, so that being said, I think it's safe to say this movie did not hold up for either of us.
Correct.
Its lasting legacy is its $100 million gross.
And that's impressive, I will say.
It is, especially when you look at, like I said, other very popular movies of the same time period. You were a hit making half of that, less than half of that. So, if nothing else, you can't deny they had a really big hit with Porky's. Now you can only watch it if you have a library card.
Yeah, yeah. Now they made enough money.
Yeah, they're fine.
They're good.
Yeah, maybe that. They were like, we've made enough money. We don't need to stream this. Like I said, this didn't age well in any way, shape, or form, but it also just wasn't funny to me. Like, there were a couple lines that I
Sure. Yeah.
genuinely thought were funny, but, we've looked back at older movies where we'll say, oh, they dropped a slur that they would have never gotten away with now, or this particular scene or storyline was like a little iffy and they wouldn't do that now. But the movie as a whole is still fun or enjoyable or whatever. And I mean, I can honestly say I don't ever need to watch Porky's again. So,
Yeah, I'm good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't even want to joke about watching the sequels.
yeah, no. I don't know what would come up that would force us into watching the sequels. So let's just make sure we don't.
That's all I got. I'm tapped. Let's close this one.
That's fine. Okay. Well, we would love to hear your thoughts on Porky's, maybe. You can find us on Instagram at Back Through the Lens Pod and on Facebook at Back Through the Lens. You can also email us at backthroughthelenspodcast@gmail.com. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. It's the best way to support our show.
If you enjoyed our show today, please give us a like and follow for updates on new and future episodes. Our show is produced by our host, Rachel Campbell, and myself, Joe Siomick, with additional help and support from Peter Telp of LPV Productions. Peter, Rachel, and I are also the executive producers. Our awesome logo is brought to you by Tom Faraci, and our wonderful theme song is by Matt Tarek. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more trips into our movie-watching past on Back Through the Lens.
Whatever. Anyway.
He shows up.
And then he showed up.
Like, you guys talking about Boof?
About the 80s cinematic classic Teen Wolf.
Directed by James Comack? Siomek?
Comac's fine. Shut up.